Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are going to look at something pretty fascinating. We're not just analyzing a political institution here. We are actually looking at what I like to call the ultimate job posting. Imagine you're just scrolling through a highly exclusive career portal, right? And boom, you find a listing for First Citizen of India. Crazy, right? Well, what does that actual literal contract look like? Let's dive in and decode the whole shebang, the application, the interview, and the daily grind of the presidency. So let me ask you straight up, have you ever actually looked at the job description for the First Citizen of India and wondered, hey, do I have what it takes? I mean, when we think of a head of state, we usually just get caught up in all the ceremony and the big headlines. But behind all that grandeur, there is a very strict, legally binding job description. It's got specific prerequisites, a defined compensation package, a clear set of duties, and honestly, a wildly rigid onboarding process. Today, we're stripping away all the politics. We are purely looking at the mechanics of this role as a legitimate career trajectory. Let's see if your resume actually matches up. Okay, take a look at this. This is the master blueprint of the highest office in the land. It's literally the complete life cycle of the presidency. It maps out exactly how you get the job, what you actually do once you're there, and eventually how you leave it. Over the next few minutes, we're going to zoom in on each of these distinct branches so we can fully grasp the life cycle of this incredible office. Now, like any savvy job seeker, let's talk about the compensation package first. The monthly emolument, which is just a fancy term for the active salary you get for being the first citizen, is set at 1.5 lakh rupees per month. And honestly, you might actually make more as a mid-level tech manager. But obviously, you are absolutely not taking this job just for the paycheck. It basically sets a clear, documented value on the active service you provide during your tenure as the executive head of state. But wait, the benefits package definitely doesn't just end when you walk out the door. The state guarantees a post-career pension of 75,000 rupees a month. That is exactly half of the active salary. This ensures permanent financial security and, dignity long after your actual contract expires. It really speaks to the permanent prestige associated with the role. It keeps you financially secure for literally the rest of your life. All right, so let's say you've accepted the terms. Sounds good, right? Well, now comes the onboarding process. And let me tell you, it is arguably the most exclusive swearing-in ceremony in the entire country. To officially finalize this hire, you can't just, sign a piece of paper in some HR office. No way. Your oath has to be administered by the absolute highest judicial officer in the nation, the Chief Justice of India. And get this, there's even a backup plan. If the Chief Justice is unavailable for some reason, the duty falls to the senior-most judge of the Supreme Court. This step beautifully intertwines the executive and judicial branches right at the very starting line of the presidency. So we've seen the perks, the titles, the onboarding, but hold on. Before you can even get to that oath, we need to pause for a second. Do you actually meet the criteria? Because this is absolutely not an entry-level position, and the screening process is incredibly rigid. There are 4 absolute non-negotiable prerequisites that form the ultimate barrier to entry. And if you fail even one of these, your application for First Citizen is immediately tossed out, rejected. Let's take a look at exactly what they are. All right, here is your qualification checklist. First and foremost, you absolutely must be a citizen of India. That's a fundamental requirement of allegiance, which makes total sense. Second, you must have completed 35 years of age, so they bake a requirement for life experience and maturity right into the job description. Third, you have to be qualified for election as a member of the Lok Sabha. This ensures you at least meet the basic democratic standards of a national legislator. And finally, here's the strictest rule of the whole bunch. You cannot hold any office of profit under the government of India. Basically, this means you have to come to the presidency completely free of any other governmental financial ties or conflicts of interest. It demands your absolute, undivided loyalty to this new role. Okay, so if you somehow manage to check all those boxes, you finally enter the interview phase. But this isn't your standard interview with a hiring manager. And interestingly enough, it isn't a direct vote from the general public either. The president is actually elected indirectly by something called an electoral college. You can kind of think of this electoral college as the most exclusive, powerful selection committee in the entire nation. Everyday citizens basically trust their chosen representatives to form this body, and this body alone holds the power to evaluate the candidates and make that final, massive hiring decision for the executive head of state. Let's break down exactly who gets to sit on this incredibly powerful selection committee. The Electoral College is formed by this really brilliant balance of national and state-level representation. On one side, you have the elected members of both houses of parliament, so they're representing the national legislative voice. But then, on the exact same level of importance, you have the elected members of the states' legislative assemblies. They're representing the highly diverse voices of all the individual states. By combining these two totally distinct groups, the whole structure ensures that the first citizen is chosen through a truly comprehensive national consensus. It perfectly bridges that gap between the center and the states.
Whew. So once you actually secure the position, you're finally handed your contract. The base term of service here is exactly 5 years. Now, that is a pretty significant block of time to execute your vision and actually fulfill your duties, right? But what really adds a fascinating twist to this career trajectory is that the 5-year mark isn't necessarily a hard finish line. You are totally eligible for re-election. That means your contract can absolutely be renewed for another chapter. If your performance satisfies that electoral college we just talked about, you get to continue to serve.
So, what do you actually do when you finally show up to the office on day one? Well, your daily responsibilities fall into 4 massive, sweeping domains of power. First, executive power, to literally run the government machinery. Second, legislative power, to help shape the laws of the country. Third, judicial power, which grants you very specific authorities, like pardons, within the legal realm. And finally, emergency powers, where you literally hold the authority to act decisively during intense national crises. Wielding these 4 powers is the absolute core of your new job description. Of course, every narrative has an ending, and this career path meticulously plans for literally every possible way the job can conclude and leave a vacancy in the office. The most standard, totally expected exit is step 1, just the normal expiry of your 5-year term. But the structure also has to prepare for sudden, abrupt exits too. You could choose to leave voluntarily through resignation, or you could be forcefully removed through impeachment if you somehow violate the Constitution. Or, tragically, the tenure could end by death while in office. It's a pretty stark reminder of the realities and really the vulnerabilities of even highest office in the land. So as we wrap up this explainer, let's just look back at the incredible journey we've mapped out today. From those incredibly rigid qualifications and that highly exclusive selection committee all the way to the immense, crushing weight of executive and emergency powers. This is absolutely no ceremonial desk job. It is a highly structured, deeply demanding role with crystal clear rules for onboarding, compensation, and exiting. So now that you know the true blueprint of the first citizen, I'm going to leave you with this one thought. Knowing the strict rules and the sweeping authority, do you still think you could handle the ultimate job? Thanks so much for exploring this with me today.